Sarah Koski, and I would like to welcome you to this year's Veterans Day Assembly at Faribault High School. A veteran is someone who has served or is currently serving in our nation's armed forces. They are courageous, brave, and inspiring individuals. Our program today is intended to help us learn more about them and honor them for their sacrifices. We are honored to have a number of veterans in attendance today, as well as 3 wonderful guest speakers, the Faribault Honor Color Guard, and a number of community members. Please enjoy this morning's program. At this time, I would like to welcome the Faribault Honor Color Guard to post the colors. Please rise and put your hand over your heart.
My name is Morgan Hansen, and I would like all of you to please join me in the reciting of the Pledge of Allegiance.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. Good morning. My name is Kurt Freeby, and I would like to introduce this morning's first guest speaker, Mr. Doug Augustine. Mr. Augustine has taught in the Faribault Public School District for 25 years. In 1970, Mr. Augustine enlisted in the U.S. Navy as a hospital foreman and was trained at Balboa Naval Hospital in San Diego, California. He served as a hospital foreman in South Carolina and Washington, D.C., as well as patrolling the Mediterranean and Adriatic Seas. It is Faribault High School's pleasure and honor to welcome Mr. Doug Augustine.
Good morning, everyone. It is truly an honor to be in front of you this morning. And I'd like to thank Ms. Solani for asking me to do this. At first, I was real hesitant, and I just didn't feel that I represented an honorable position as this is to have the opportunity to speak with you. But the more I thought about it, the more I thought that I could use this time, a special time, to teach a class of 1,200 students. So I took that opportunity, and I thank Ms. Solani for giving me that opportunity today. I really have two messages that I wish to share with you today. The first, just a little bit about why we are gathered here this morning. The year was 1918. That's 88 years ago. The Allies defeated the Germans in World War I. And on the 11th day, the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month of that year, 1918, an armistice was signed to end the war, to end all wars. The history of Veterans Day was made. So each November 11th, we honor more than 25 million veterans who chose to serve, protect, and defend this great country. Now, it's difficult to picture 25 million, but I know most of us in this country think a lot about football. Imagine this, 380 football stadiums filled with 65,000 people. That's the number of American veterans living in our country today. We all remember 9/11, the terror that struck our nation that day. But today, I would like you to remember 11/11. The 11th day of the 11th month, and on that day, take an opportunity to thank a vet. And my second message today centers around you and some of the opportunities that could change your life. One of my passions as a teacher is to teach young people about jobs and careers. So I want to tell you a story about a 17-year-old who was nearing the end of his high school career without any sense of direction. College was not an option. It was too costly. He did not want to just get a job. But he did remember the times when he listened to his father's stories about being in the Navy. Well, some of you may know I have a twin brother, and my father used to cook one on each knee, and then he would kind of bounce us. And he would tell us these stories about the times that he served his country in the Navy. Those were always exciting times and stories. I chose the Navy. My brother chose the Army. I don't know, he must not have been listening very well. So during the next 4 years, I began to understand why those stories were so exciting. The Navy trained me free. I lived in an exciting place, California, right next to the beach. South Carolina, Hilton Head Island, a great place to vacation. Washington, D.C., and Italy. I took cruises free. I rode aboard a nuclear submarine free. And I met people that would be my lifelong friends. And after 4 exciting years, I now stand in front of you and tell you about the many benefits that are waiting for you. The Armed Forces opens many doors. Today, there are 4,100 career opportunities and occupations that are available with free training. So if you choose to serve your country, you will have many benefits offered to you as a veteran. And you will be one of those special people in this country that we honor on 11/11. And they are the American veterans. Thank you very much.
recognition. For this time, we'd like to honor the staff of Faribault High School who have served in our armed forces. Please honor our veterans with a round of applause after I read their name and their tour of duty. Mr. Dennis German, the United States Navy, 1968 to 1972, tours of duty, West Pacific. Mr. Doug Augustine, United States Navy, 1970 to 1974. Mr. Dave Hickman, United States Marine Corps, tours of duty, Vietnam, 1968 to 1969. Mr. Bob Gillis, Sergeant, United States Marine Corps, tour of duty, Vietnam. And Mr. Rick Wynn, United States Air Force, tours of duty, Riverside, California, 4 years of service. I would like to introduce this morning's second guest speaker, Mrs. Elizabeth Strokas. Mrs. Elizabeth, or Liz Strokas, better known as Betty Wall to those she grew up with here in Faribault, served our country during World War II. Mrs. Strokas served as a pilot and united with the Women Air Service Pilots, or WASPs. In 2001, Mrs. Strokas was named to the Minnesota Aviation Hall of Fame. She also helped open the World War II Veterans Memorial in Austin, alongside shooting executive Tom Brokaw. It is Faribault High School's pleasure and honor to welcome back Mrs. Elizabeth Strokas.
Good morning.
Morning.
What did you say? Thank you. It's really good to be back. Maybe you remember me, that little old lady that had a big voice. I don't know. Anyway. I'm really happy to be here to speak to all you wonderful young people and to hear these people speak. I'm just proud to be in attendance. And you know what? On November 15, 1919, 4 days after Armistice Day was created, I was born. So, man, the Armistices are about the same age. I'm going to be 87 next week. How about that? I'm sure that you remember my story. I'll just tell you a little bit. I always have to watch the time because I love to talk. Anyway, I'm like this young man here. We didn't have any money. My father had gone broke because of the banks went broke and they took all his money. And we had 6 children in the family, so we all had to get out and get a job as soon as we went through high school. But all 6 of us did go through high school. And when I heard about flying, and I always like to get high. And high, be careful, I mean getting altitude. I always like to get up there, climb up there. And so there was one young man came up to talk to me, and he started talking about flying. I thought, boy, maybe that's what I'd like to do. So he said, well, want to take a flight? And I said, sure. For me, it was love at first flight, and I knew I had to fly airplane. So we had quite a time because we had a membership club of 15 fellas out at the local airport. Fellas, you understand. And finally, one of the women, this is the 1942, and you know, this was the time the war was on, 1940. And they only had the 15 fellas to fly that little 65 horsepower Cub, which was a beautiful aircraft. Well, one of the fellows went into the Air Force, so then they invited me to join. And I thought, gee, that sounds great, you know, 14 fellas and me. I didn't think that was too bad a city. So I went to the fella and I said, well, how much does it cost? Oh, it cost $100. $100? I never saw a $100 bill in my life. I was making $50 a month at the courthouse. And bringing it home to Mother, she gave me $5 for spending, you know, that's the way it was. And I slept at home. I had 3 older sisters, lots of clothes to wear, so I wasn't in too bad a shape, I thought. But you know, I heard the bank's low money, so I went down to the local banker and I said, Mr. Cowell, I want to borrow $100. $100, Miss Wall? What do you need that for? I said, well, I'm going to start to fly. Oh, he said, women don't fly. I said, this one's going to. So he said, well, he lent me the money, and then you know what he did? He asked what I had for collateral. I had a bicycle. He took my bicycle for collateral, and he co-signed my note. You find a banker like that today, my friend, you know somebody. Anyway, I had a wonderful time we were the first women to fly the military aircraft, and I was very fortunate after getting my wings, my beautiful wings, sent to Las Vegas Army Airfield, and I was training gunners, and what a beautiful time it was. It's a terrible thing to say because the war was on, and I don't mean to minimize the war because, excuse me, war is really hell, and there's no doubt about it. But if you got me in the war, I figured I may as well fly. So I was flying the 4-engine bombers, the B-17 as co-pilot. I was flying the B-26 as co-pilot. I flew the P-39, the Bel Air, the little fighter. So it was a wonderful experience for me, and I'm very, very happy that I had the opportunity to do that. And I'm really happy to have the opportunity to speak to all of you again. It's been a real thrill for me. So then after I got out of the service, I had all kinds of things to do, but I didn't want to go back into an office. They told us, thank you, girls, you did a good job. We took the oath of the military when we went in. We were under orders at all time. We flew any aircraft they wanted us to fly. And we did everything we thought we should as a military personnel. But you see, the war was on, and there were only 1,800 women were accepted into this organization. Only 1,074 of us received our silver wing. And so, the war was on. They didn't have time to make us veterans. It only took 35 years to make us veterans. Now I'm a veteran of the Army Air Force, and that makes me happy. Anyway, and after I got out of the service, they say it was really hard because I didn't want to go back and work in an office again after doing what I did. I did many crazy jobs. I was training starlets how to shoot bow and arrows. I didn't even think about bow and arrows. I went out that night, I'd go and find out how to hold the bow, and the next day I'd go show them what to do, and I did that for a while, but I wasn't making much money, and I was getting hungry, so I had to go get a good job. I worked for Firestone Tire Rubber Company out in California for a while, and there was an air show going on, and I went to Mr. Firestone, and I said, Mr. Firestone, you get an airplane to fly, and I'll win the race for you. Well, he didn't. He liked my enthusiasm, but he said, no, thank you, we already have a man. So that's the way it was. Northwest Airlines didn't want me either, but that's okay. That was the time. Now I am so happy today, women and men have all these beautiful opportunities. You know, today you can do anything you want to do as long as you work hard and do a good job in school. You can be anything you want to be, as long as it isn't illegal or immoral, you go for it, okay? Okay. And I am very fortunate. They did make me a member of the Aviation Hall of Fame. And it really pleased me because it's very light metal, because you see, we're so old, if the metal gets heavy, we do like this morning. So we have to have a nice light metal. But I'm very proud to be a member of the Aviation Hall of Fame of the state of Minnesota. And my veterans are the ones that put me, and I'm very proud of that. Well, I got so many things to tell you, but I don't know where I should start. Anyway, I'm just very happy that I can tell you my story. I've been to 22 states. I used to give 50 programs a year. I cut down to 45. So I don't give as many anymore. But I'd love to speak, and I'd love to speak to the children. I've spoken to schools all over these United States, from New York and from Florida and way out to California, and I'd love to speak to the children because you've got so much potential and there's so much out there for you, and I want you to know that you can do it. Just follow your dreams, okay? God bless you all, God bless America, and God bless America.
third guest, Miss Mary Danielson Gates. Miss Mary Danielson Gates worked in the Fairville School District for 31 years and recently retired. She currently works with the MSU, Mankato, and supervising student teachers. Ms. Danielson Gates' husband was a Vietnam vet with the United States Air Force. Her son is a career naval fighter officer with experience both in the Persian Gulf and Iraq. Both of her brothers were Vietnam veterans. In addition, all of her uncles were World War II veterans. It is Fairville High School's pleasure to honor and to welcome Ms. Mary Danielson Gates to the podium.
Greetings to this crowd today. I would like to extend special greetings to your school staff, teachers, students, friends, community guests, and I would also like to acknowledge a few students scattered around the crowd today who perhaps sat in one of my classrooms, whether it was Nerstrand, Lincoln, or Roosevelt. And I would like to extend to them a special greeting and tell them, as I told them the last day in my classroom, thoughts of you will always bring a smile to my heart. It's true today, even though you've changed. I'm so honored to be in this company today, and I question why. But I guess if there's a criteria, it's because my life has been very colored by the veterans I have known and loved. And I would like to tell you their stories today. Veterans Day, some words that come to my mind when I think of a veteran: duty, honor, country, courage, strength, valor, steadiness, and the list could go on. I am very honored to be in their presence and to give you some of my views. Veterans Day, as you have heard, is a day to take time to honor our country's veterans, both living and dead, that have given us the freedoms that we enjoy today. They could be sailors, soldiers, Marines, airmen, women, men, officers, enlisted men or women, and the list goes on. But they are every man and every woman. Although my life has been touched by many veterans, as I said, there are 3 that have greatly impacted my life and become heroes to me, each in a different way, each in a different generation. Allow me to tell you about them. Butch was my uncle and a World War II vet. He was a farm boy from Kenya, and at one time when he was growing up, he had picked 20 acres of corn by hand. Well, at the end of that day, he thought it sounded like a really good idea to enlist to see the world instead of working down home on the farm. Little did he know how much of the world he would be seeing. We were at peace when he enlisted in the Army in 1939. After training, he was sent to Hawaii for duty as a military policeman. He loved Hawaii and spent 2 years there before he was sent to the Philippines. While in the Philippines, Pearl Harbor and the Philippine Islands were attacked. His unit was moved around the Bataan Peninsula, frequently evading the Japanese, but 4 months later, they had to surrender. Uncle Butch was heard to say that that was one of the worst days of his life, and it was then that his ordeal began. He and 12,000 Americans, along with 58,000 Filipinos, were ordered to walk to their first prisoner of war camp. This was later to be called the Bataan Death March. Their prisoner of war camps were 80 miles away from where they were captured. I want to give you a picture of the immensity of this death march. 70,000 men were put into rows of 4, each about 5 feet apart. These rows stretched for 17 miles, as far as it is from here to Kenya. They had to march or walk that 80 miles, and it took them 19 days to reach the prison camps. They were given very little food, and only the water they could find along the way, many times polluted by whatever had been thrown into it, including bodies. If a man staggered, he was either killed or dropped where he was, and the others were not allowed to help, or that fate would be theirs as well. Cruelty, brutality, and starvation were the cause of many of those casualties, and it is said that fewer than half of them survived. He was in the Philippines at 2 different camps for about 2 years when he was taken to a hell ship for transport to Japan. He often said that that hell ship was by far worse than the prison camps. The men were all put into the hold of a ship without food and only the water that was sprayed down on them for 17 days. There was no room to sit or lay down. All of them just stood, man to man, for the whole time. If a man became sick or died, he just died in his place and was never moved. Just imagining those conditions is terrifying. He was in a prison camp in Japan for another 1.5 years until Japan surrendered. He was liberated and returned home. Before the war, when he first enlisted, that young farm kid of 6'4" weighed 185 pounds. When he came back, he weighed 100. He went on to, when he got out of the prison camps, he switched his service to the Army Air Corps and had a full career, and my Uncle Butch died a year ago on Memorial Day. So he had a full life. But Uncle Butch never talked about the war when we were young. He was that fun uncle, the one that would play with us, take us fishing, make our hooks, and always take a personal interest in our lives. Well, we always knew he had a story. None of it ever came out while we were young. But there were those nasty-looking welts on his legs, and that Japanese sword and case in the attic. We would look at it and wonder and imagine. It wasn't until he was in his 70s and his kids convinced him to write about the war that we learned a few of those details of his 3.5 years in captivity. Reading this book today is an all too real look into the atrocities of war. My words of description for Uncle Butch would be brave, courageous, honorable. In the next generation, we have Ben, my high school sweetheart. He was the basketball captain, I was the cheerleader. We probably were the American dream. After St. Olaf College, he was commissioned in the United States Air Force, and a year later, we were married. When Ben went to pilot training, he was the outstanding pilot, taking home 4 of the 5 awards in his flight school class, including the Commander's Trophy. I had instructors tell me that this man can make a plane dance. They had never seen anything like it. A gifted man. I was so proud. Because of his standing at the top of his class, he was able to choose any assignment that he wanted. We talked so long and hard about this because Vietnam was in full force, and we knew that sooner or later it would be a part of our lives. So he chose the premier aircraft of the day, the McDonnell Douglas F-4 Phantom. After 6 months of training in the Phantom, he was sent to Cam Ranh Bay, Vietnam, to begin his 1-year tour. Our year-old son Brian and I moved back to Kenyon to be near both sets of parents for that year. 9 months into his tour on a mission to Laos, his aircraft was shot down. He and his backseater punched out and landed on opposite sides of a small river. Immediate search and rescue efforts began, with these 2 men directing them. Several times that first day, the helicopter lowered its lifeline to Ben, one time getting to within an arm's reach of him, but each time had to pull back because of heavy ground fire. The men dug in for the night. All in all, they were behind enemy lines for over 51 harrowing hours before Woody was rescued. This rescue would be the largest rescue effort of the war, with over 500 missions flown, and this record still stands to this day. Ben was not heard from again after the second warning, although his rescue beeper stayed on for the duration of the battery life. Missing in action would be his to this day, and ours. My words of description for Ben would be sacrifice. They call it the supreme sacrifice. Incidentally, Ben was the first one to hear some of Butch's POW stories. They had a long talk over in the corner the night before Ben left for Vietnam. Those generations converged. And now we have this generation, our son Brian. Brian was 1. Actually, on his birthday, his dad left for Vietnam the last time he saw him. He too grew up in Kenya and also went to St. Olaf, but he chose the Navy, and in 1992 became a naval flight officer. At this time, he has over 1,000 landings on 3 different aircraft carriers. He has 2 6-month tours of duty in the Persian Gulf, along with a tour in Iraq this past summer. His aircraft is the EA-6D Prowler, which is an electronic surveillance aircraft. He's married and has 3 children and has spent a considerable amount of time away from them as he trains for continual duty in all parts of the world. This last March, he was able to take 1 month and accompany an investigation team into Laos, into the area where his father was lost, to search for the remains. Not only was this trip physically extremely dangerous, they stayed in a small mountain village and were helicoptered into the site each day. It was also a trip of his heart. My description for him would be honor, strength, and love. No questions asked. The 3rd generation of veterans who have heard and answered the call to duty. All of these men, including my brothers, my other uncles, these 2 speakers, and all the veterans you met in the audience today, are heroes to me. But what is a hero? I submit that a hero is someone who is willing to reach beyond themselves for a cause or an ideal. This can be costly, but you can see that in these lives, cost was never a consideration. They all sacrificed, whether it was time away from home, family, and friends, or in the case of Ben, his life. And they did it all for the cause of freedom. They didn't argue or ask why or what's it going to cost me. They were ordinary men who did extraordinary things because they believed. They were a cut above the rest. And I feel certain that each of them would not want glory or attention for their actions. They just did what they asked, sacrificed something for freedom. Our country, this experiment of democracy, where we proclaim freedom for all, is relatively new in our world's history. It was born in war, and it has been preserved at times in war. We can be a threat to those who do not understand our commitment to liberty and freedom. But this commitment has caused many among us to sacrifice, one way or another. And that is what today is all about, honoring and thanking those who put it all on the line for us. What can you do for them? First of all, I do hope you find a vet to respect and to thank. I hope you ask questions of any veteran and collect their stories in your head and your heart. I guarantee you that they have the most interesting stories you can imagine. And I also hope you honor their sacrifice by finding an ideal beyond yourself and acting on it. Let your ordinary become the extraordinary. What about that person that's different from you, that might believe something different? Well, liberty and freedom for all means just that, for all. I dare say that none of these men said, well, I'm only going to do this for those that believe the same things I do. They went for all. to preserve all of our freedoms, no questions asked. We just had elections in this country. This is another way we have honored liberty and freedom. We transfer power peacefully by using the ballot box instead of a weapon. Democracy can be preserved when people take the time to learn and study and then act upon their ideals and conviction. We get to choose our leaders that we feel will best protect these ideals. I suggest that to further honor these veterans, we should continually learn and investigate in order to carefully and deliberately choose to preserve our democracy, that liberty and freedom. So there you have a glimpse of my life and my youth. I have been so fortunate to have lived and seen 3 generations of people who were heroes to me. Some were older, some were my age, and some are younger. Some were men, some were women. I have known a few well, but I have not known most of our country's veterans. But I can learn from them all. I can respect them all and feel honored to be part of their lives. My wish for you is to search your heart and your mind. Look around where you see liberty and freedom. Preserve it for yourself and future generations. It was done for you. I would like to close today by quoting my brother, who was the state commander of the VFW a few years ago. He made many, many speeches, and every time he would close with the same saying. I feel it speaks what we're talking about today. In his honor, God bless America, and God bless the veterans who put it all on the line for us. Thank you.
Please observe a moment of silence for those who have served our country.
this morning's assembly. I'd also like to thank our guest speakers for sharing their stories with us. Thank you to the FHS Band and Choir for their excellent performance this morning. Thank you to the Faribault Honor Color Guard for your attendance today. This concludes our assembly. Students, you are moving to your second hour class, which will begin at 10:10. Thank you.